I'm just setting up my screen so I have everything in the place that I need it to be. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that, and welcome to Date Night with Martina. As you can tell, I've had a couple of technical issues, and technical issues, technical stuff is not my strong point, so it's good to be here. I'm back on the old version of Facebook Live. I'm not sure what difference it makes for you as a viewer. The features are slightly different for me as a user, but I also noticed last week that Facebook didn't kind of show my notification to as many people because I was on the old version. But it's telling me this week that my browser needs to be updated before I can use the current version of Facebook Live. Anyway, enough about technical stuff. I am so excited about tonight's topic, how men can lead in relationships and the difference it makes for women. And I noticed when I typed before into my Facebook post, I put, and the role women play. So I think I want to address both aspects, that yes, it makes an incredible difference for women, and also there is a role that women play. Like, there's a way that we can inspire men to lead. There are different ways of being in ourselves that support that. So I've got some points to talk about for men and for women, and I also, about 5 questions have already come in, 3 from men and 2 from women. Really great questions as well, so hopefully I'll get through the questions. This is, I think, date night number 8 or 9, which is pretty amazing. Like, it feels good to have had this consistency of being here every Wednesday night. Consistency is also not really a strong point in my life, so showing up and offering this every Wednesday night feels really good, and it feels like there's a really beautiful sense of connection and community happening. Like, Joanne and I are getting quite a lot of emails and messages and feedback about it. So yeah, it feels really great. So thank you all for being here. I see there's some familiar names joining. Hi Sherry, Yael, Andy, Trina, Melissa, Tara, Kim, Kiara, Greg, Amy Louise, and Danny. Awesome. Beautiful to have you here. And Fergus, even though he said he'd watch it later. But yes, I'm here. And yeah, how are you all feeling? What's happening in your worlds? Type into the chat box if you feel to share what's present for you. And I'll start leading us into a meditation shortly. Just, my screen's still not how I need it to be, so I'm going to take a second to see if I can adjust that so I can see my notes. If I reduce my Word document down to 75%, is a little bit small, isn't it? I won't be able to read that. Let's go for 90%. Okay, there we go. I think 90% should carry it. Then I can see everything I need to see. Awesome, awesome. And Hades is here, sleeping away and supporting you all with his presence and energy here. So just to drop into the space and create that container and that space of connection, let's have you all place one hand on the heart, one hand on the lower belly. Close your eyes and start to feel into your body, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Releasing any of the external world expectations, any sense of needing to be anywhere or needing to be anything for anyone, and just coming into this moment, feeling your breath, feeling your body. With each inhale, have a sense of breathing in, saying yes to life, opening your body. And with each exhale, letting go, and melting into nothingness. Inhale, breathing in life, inspiration, energy. Exhale, releasing. And then briefly scanning your body, releasing any tension through your head, your jaw, your neck, your shoulders, releasing any tension through your back, your chest, your breasts, your lungs, releasing any tension through the lower back, through the belly. Releasing any tension through the buttocks, the pelvic floor, the genitals, the groin, through the thighs, the calves, the feet. Releasing any tension through the arms, through the hands. Coming in to being present in this moment. Nowhere to go. Nothing to do. Simply to be here and to receive what's important for you, and to let go of anything that doesn't serve you. And then bringing yourself back to the space, opening your eyes, moving your body if you need to. Fergus says he snuck in for a few minutes. Carlo says he's here. Danny feels present and loved. Carl's here. Fergus feels amazing. Awesome. Hi Duff, hi Kim, Deborah, Nicola. Beautiful. So, how men can lead in relationships. This is something that I feel in today's world is not very well understood, and I did speak about it in last week's Date Night Live. It came up in the context of some of the questions in the Ask Me Anything session. But I feel it deserves its own date night. It deserves more space and more expansion because it's not very well understood. And from working with women, it feels like it's a really big missing ingredient for a lot of women. There are a lot of women who want that something else from the men in their lives, and they're not sure what the something else is, how to get it. And so often what women do is go into trying to change their men and trying to make their men step up, trying to make their men lead. But of course, trying to make a man do something is not of service to either the woman or the man. And in the recent Women's Level 1, where I had a range of women from around the world, and a woman was speaking about a topic of discontent in her relationship and something she was unhappy about. And like in most relationship situations, the issue that's presenting felt like it wasn't the real issue for her. So I listened to her speak about the issue, and it was something quite small, the issue itself. But I got the sense that what was really at play was a much bigger topic in her life. There was a sense that she needed something from her partner, but she didn't even know what it was, how to ask for it. And so I said to her, it feels like you want your partner to be able to lead. And she went, yeah. And then I kind of caught the faces of the other women on the Zoom session and went, how many other women feel like that? Because I had this sense of a collective, like, something in it. And so when I said how many other women feel like that, all the women on the Zoom call were like, yeah, like everybody wants their partner to lead, even though they didn't even know at this stage what that statement even meant. But intuitively, it was speaking to something in a woman. It was calling to something in a woman that has her be like, yeah. And so what I know is true for a lot of women today, and I speak a lot from the perspective of a woman. We have another cat joining us. There's Panna. I speak a lot, of course, from the perspective of a woman because I am a woman, and it's easy for me to speak about how men leading affects women. So I speak a lot to that aspect of it and what women can do, and I will also speak to what men can do and how I experience that in relationship, like what changes and what are the things that Rod does to create that sense of leading me and leading in the relationship. So I think there's a lot of women who are really trying to be superwoman today, to have it all together, to be, working or running businesses, raising families, taking care of the household, supporting their partners, and not allowing space for their own feelings, needs, desires, their preferences, their likes, their dislikes to be expressed. And when that happens, a woman ends up occupying the masculine polarity. There's a sense that she's holding the responsibility for everything in her life, for everything in the family and the household life. And this is quite a common complaint from women, that they feel like they're carrying everything. And I think in the shifting dynamics of the last 30, 40, 50 years even, men have become a little confused about what their role is. So there's a lot of men who are happy to be the leaders in the business world, be the leaders in their professional world, make tough decisions, be that man who is like out there creating clarity, structure, direction, and this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, we're setting goals, we're setting visions for the future. But then when they get home, they're falling back more into a passive mode, into a feminine receptive mode, whereby their partner is running things, their partner is making things happen. And I know for a lot of men, they feel that there's no space for them to take up that structure, decision making, clarity, the leading in the family. So there's two parts of this. The woman needs to be willing to fall into her feminine, which I'll speak to some more later, but the man needs to be willing to make some decisions. He needs to be willing to create containers, create structures, to set some direction for what's happening in their shared life together. Because when he doesn't, women often end up feeling overwhelmed, resentful, and if a woman's like holding everything together, then she's less likely to open sexually, to express her love in a sexual or a sensual way through her body, because there'll be a sense that her body just feels overloaded, overwhelmed, like there's too much going on. So for men and women who are listening, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are so far. Like, is this resonating, not resonating for you? Is there a part of you that's like, yeah, that feels valuable to me? Or No, I don't understand it. Just let me know where you are so that I have a sense of what's happening in the space. And so when a man is able to take on that role of leading in the relationship, leading in the family, part of it is about creating structure, creating containers, having a sense of what will be of the highest value, what will be of the highest service to the relationship or to the family or to all of those dynamics at once. So it's not about, and I spoke to this last week, but I do feel like it's worth repeating here. It's not about the man controlling. It's not about the man saying, this is the way things are going to be, this is what you have to do. It's actually that the man understands the needs and the dynamics within his relationship, his own needs and desires, his partner's needs and desires, and is able to create leadership in such a way that supports what unfolds from there. So, for example, in my relationship with Rod, there are things that I shared with Rod right from the beginning of our relationship around, say, for example, my need for warm weather holidays, which you will have probably heard me share before, but also a question mark that I have had for a while of whether I want to live in Victoria long term. So Rod's often researching places on the coast in New South Wales to feel into where we might move to. So that's him taking that lead and feeling into like what would be suitable for him, researching and clarifying and coming back to me with questions. How's this place feel to you? Do you want to be closer to the beach, or do you want to be nearer to the bush? Or as it turns out, we both actually want to be near beach and bush. So, but the man taking the lead is very much about including a woman's feelings, including a woman's desires and her needs. And when a man brings that sense of leadership, there's a part in a woman that can just go, he gets me. Even if I've had a busy day and I just go to Rod at the end of the day and say, I feel really tired now. And he goes, okay, I'm going to run a bath for you. You hop in the bath, I'll make dinner. And it's like, he gets me. He knows what I need. There's a sense then of being held in that. There's a sense of being seen in that. If I go to him with a challenge that I'm having at work and I'm like, there's this situation that I'm trying to resolve and I'm not sure whether to do this thing, I'm not sure whether to do that thing, and he will help me problem solve it. He will walk through the issues with me. He'll break it down into fine detail and give me some insights I may not have considered, help me look at the bigger picture, help me see what's for the best for me and for my clients. And then from that place, still leave me free to make my own decisions, but he will have created a container, created a structure of holding me in my decision making so that I can be empowered to make the best decision possible. So there are times when it may not even be about him making the decision, but him creating a structure in which I have all of the pieces, all of the feelings, all of my own dynamics, my client dynamics, all teased out so that clarity can arise from that. When I wanted to buy a new car, which is around 18 months ago now, I said to Rod, I want a new car. And he's like, what's important to you? And I said, it needs to be red and it needs to have heated seats. And that's about it. My needs and tastes in cars are pretty simple. So Rod knew my budget and he started researching. So he looked at all the kind of small to medium cars within my budget, making sure, that those particular brands and makes had red cars and heated seats. And then as he was researching, he decided there were safety features he would like me to have. So that included things like the blind spot detection light and the lane departure warning, and I think a few others. And so he chose around 3 or 4 cars for me to test drive. And I'd had Mazdas previously, so we'd kind of ruled Mazdas out. And so we went and test drove around 3 or 4 other cars. And it was funny because none of them quite felt like it. And then just as we were about to wind up for the day, he said to me, "Oh, I've looked on the Mazda website, and the Mazda in that size actually has everything you're looking for, plus what I want you to have. So let's go test drive the Mazda." We test drove the Mazda, and then it was like, okay, yep, I'm getting the Mazda, like it felt right. And so ultimately that was still my decision. But Rod created the container, he did the research, he did the problem solving of making sure all the features were included. So there was that sense that I didn't have to exercise my own researching and clarifying capacities. I could just step in and do the fun bits like test driving and then going, yeah, that feels right. So I'm just going to check the comments. Greg says, absolutely resonating. Trina says, totally resonates. Kath says, repeating bloody pattern in my life. Fergus says, it works. Melissa says, definitely resonates. Catherine says, resonates. Danny, relating to this, a strong woman also leads, and you have just touched on my control question. Yes. So that's a good point to bring up, Danny. So like in my working day, I make a lot of decisions. I make a lot of I hold space for people. I'm making decisions. I'm creating structures and pathways for the business, but also with my clients. So there's a sense that I'm exercising my masculine in a way that feels really good in my working life, but in my relationship life, like when I walk out of this space and I walk back into the living area and connect with Rod, I want to be able to go, he's got me. That sense of like really being held and being gotten. And if I'm always making decisions, if I'm making the lead, taking the lead on things, then yeah, that can mean that Rod and I end up butting heads. And sometimes we do butt heads because we both want to lead. And ultimately, that doesn't feel good for me to be trying to push for the lead, because ultimately in my relationship I want to be in a more feminine space. I want to have that sense of knowing that Rod's holding me, knowing that he values my feelings, he values my feminine expression, he values the movement of the energy, the feelings, the feminine flow through my body. And if I inhibit, if I hold those things back from him, then I start going into a controlling mode, but also I start to have less of my feminine available, and I start to kind of want to create and hold my own containers, hold my own structures. It's quite common that if I speak to Rod about something, let's say I'm feeling upset about something, and I can be a little slow in coming forward with my feelings. That's part of my pattern. So part of my internal work is encouraging myself to be vulnerable and expressive of my feelings quicker, because my kind of default pattern would be to hold it back. And so I might go to Rod and just be like, oh, I feel sad. And he'll say, is there anything else there? And as soon as he says, is there anything else there? I know that he's holding space for me. He's creating a container, he's creating a structure in which I can go, yeah, actually, my body's kind of exhausted and I'm overwhelmed and I need some space. Actually, maybe I need to be held, or I might not even know what I need. So then he might say, okay, perhaps you need a bath. Perhaps you need to go for a walk. Have you done your movement practice today? Maybe you need to do that. So he can hold a space of being like, how else do you feel? What else is present for you? What's happening in your body now? Asking those types of questions gives me a lot of permission and encouragement for my feelings. And I know there are a lot of other women who need that encouragement for their feelings, need that sense of it's okay to bring our feelings forward. Sherry says, Paul is an amazing leader when I get myself out of the way. That is so, so true. So many of us women need to fall into our feminine, and we often think that falling into our feminine is the disempowered position, but falling into our feminine is way, way, way more empowered position than trying to like, I've got this, I'm holding it all together. Just wanted to click on Sherry's other comment. I love the idea of the man leading, and I long for it as I relate to it, having a sense of holding it all together when there is a lack of direction and containment. But I also have a very hard time letting go and allowing for that, as it brings up a lot of fear and challenges my well-worn program of not being able to trust men, nor ever having a felt experience of having a man I can trust to lead me. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back journey. Yeah, and I can understand that, Sherry, and I've certainly experienced that too, whereby I've had times in my relationship with Rod where I fall into my feminine, I'm open, I'm feeling, I'm expressive, and then I start to feel vulnerable. I start to feel more deeply connected to Rod, and then my protection comes up. My old patterns come back up, and then I'm like, I'm okay, I've got this. And then at some point that gets too painful, and I drop the protection, fall back inside. He and I reconnect, and then we go deeper and deeper, and then at some point again, the protection comes back up. So there is this dance, even when we are committed to the journey of opening, protection comes up, opening, protection comes up. So for women, knowing that some of what you're looking for is in the feeling, the expressive place. And that's the role that women play. So men, you need to start paying attention to how she feels. And if you don't know how she feels, then start to be more observant, to watch her body language, to listen to her tone of voice, to listen to whether she feels open or whether she feels protecting. And if she's protecting, why is she protecting? Why is she holding herself back? How is it that you're being? I know sometimes, and this came up recently in a private messenger conversation with a man, and I'm hoping it's okay to share this. I won't go into any specific details, but a man was concerned that a woman had broken up with him for his lack of physical strength. And my experience is that it would be incredibly rare for a woman to break up with a man based on lack of physical strength. However, a woman could break up with a man based on lack of presence or lack of awareness or lack of strength to feel where she's at, or the lacking in capacity to lead her. Because leading a woman means that you need to take risks. You need to have courage. You also need to be vulnerable. You need to be willing to make some mistakes. So it's quite a responsibility for men. And it's often that responsibility that a man is afraid of taking on, because what if he does something that upsets her or pisses her off or that isn't good for her? And this is where women need to get really good at expressing our feelings without blaming men. Men are going to make mistakes. Women are going to make mistakes. If Rod makes a decision that I don't like, and then I go, ugh, like we were having a decision about money, not a decision, a discussion about money recently, and he said something I didn't like, and I'm just like, ugh, that doesn't feel trustable. And as soon as I did that, he's like, it calls him into presence. It calls him to being in a more inspired, a more empowered, masculine place. I wasn't putting him down. I wasn't saying that his thinking was off. I didn't try and control or change his mind. All I did was go, that doesn't feel good, or that doesn't feel trustable. And in that instance, there's a part of him that can take that information on board and reorient. He can also choose not to reorient because he's a free man. But feeling how strong my feeling reaction is, and that this was something that played into our relationship, then of course he can go, oh, is this actually of service, or is this me going for something just to, please his own agendas? So I'll just pause a second and come back to the comments. Martina, how to do that if you also work with your partner, especially when you live together and work together in the same place? I'll come back to that, Nina. Kath says she'll come back and listen later, putting Sophie to bed. Trina likes the idea of my partner finding a car or anything that fitted my criteria, but I would feel guilty that him doing that would put an extra load on him. Thoughts? Yeah. Well, it's kind of a funny thing. Rod loves researching cars, right? So Rod would he'd research a car for you as well, Trina. That's how much Rod loves cars, just looking at them, researching them. So there was zero guilt in that particular topic. But it could be a different topic. It could be an appliance for the kitchen. It could be, trying to think of other things that we've kind of done around the house or that Rod's looked into for me. There's a place where a man wants to be able to provide for a woman. So that energy of feeling guilty is in actual fact, it's denying him the opportunity to provide. There are a bunch of things where Rod has stepped in and taken care of stuff for me because he wants to be able to provide. He wants to be able to fulfill that masculine desire to provide. Now, Rod and I both have our own sources of income, and we have joint finances and separate finances. So I don't need Rod to provide in terms of taking care for me in the financial sense. But when he provides something by going, hey, I've looked into this, babe, I've, searched this for you, then he gets to use his time, his energy, his capacity to contribute to me. And that makes a significant difference to me personally, but also in our relationship, because I feel held by him. So that part of you that might feel guilty, I would suggest having a look at that, because perhaps the part where you feel guilty is the part where you might not feel comfortable letting a partner contribute or provide for you. And there'll be some things that a partner will want to provide and will happily do, and there'll be other things that, a partner might not want to provide or contribute to. So feeling into what are the ways that your partner can provide and make a difference for you in your life, and there'll be different areas of expertise and understanding that fit within a relationship context. Nina says that she does all of the holding space for her partner all the time. Don't men need that as well? Should I not have done it at all? Definitely women can hold space in our relationships, and there's beauty in that, and there's space for a man to be in his feminine and express how he feels, and that happens in our relationship as well. It's often about the energy behind it. So if I'm asking Rod about how he feels, yes, there's a holding space, there's a container there, but I'm also staying connected to that feminine softness, to the empathy, to the compassion, and leading with that rather than leading with the structure so much. I hope that makes sense. It's a softer way of holding it in the relationship than I might with somebody else. Still very much there and present and available, but letting my feminine holding space of the empathy, the compassion, the vulnerability be much more present. And I may say to Rod, is there more that you feel? Is there anything else that you need? Rod's quite direct in expressing his feelings, so he often doesn't need as much encouragement to tease his feelings out. I'm the one in our relationship that needs more encouragement to bring my feelings forward. Carl says, facing the mountain lion, hoping for the kitten. Any hints on a magic spell beyond holding space? Facing the mountain lion, hoping for the kitten. I'm not sure what that means, Carl. Can you maybe expand on that? Kim says, as a man, I'm very happy to hear these concepts from a woman of power, confirming my instincts in my relationship to lead. It's a strong sense and always has been. Thank you. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I'm glad that you can feel that, Kim. And there's something incredibly beautiful when a man has the courage, the capacity, the depth, is willing to take the risk, is willing to be vulnerable and take that lead. And one of the things that women need to really understand is the expression of our feelings. Now, the expression of our feelings is like, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel happy, I feel excited, I feel cherished, I feel loved, I feel scared, I feel hurt. Like, our feelings need to be expressed cleanly in the moment. There needs to be a direct communication of our feelings and letting that be seen through our body. So if we go to a man 3 days later and go, when you did that thing, it felt like this and it felt like that and you should have done this, that's analysis, it's blame, and it often, brings up all this other resentment, and there's no trusting, there's no expression. So the important part in all of this for women is letting that energy, letting your expression, letting your feelings come up in the moment. So if your partner's like, let's say a simple example could be, okay, let's have Thai food for dinner. And I might go, ugh. And say if I'm doing this with Rod and he's like, let's have Thai food for dinner, and I go, ugh, then he knows I don't want Thai food. I'm letting my feelings, I'm letting that deeper part of me just express freely in the moment, not filtering, not censoring. And then he's like, okay, well, how about fish and chips? Mm, yeah. And then he's like, okay, I get it. That doesn't work for you either. How about then we have steak and chips? And then I'm like, He's like, okay, steak and chips it is. So then a decision is made, and all I'm doing is listening to my feelings. When a woman listens to her feelings and communicates from her feelings, it helps a man to be able to direct and orient. But one of the biggest pitfalls for women is that we often end up in relationships where we don't trust the man. And if you don't trust the man, you're not going to trust his lead. So you will keep on trying to make the decisions, to hold the lead, to hold everything together yourself. So if you're always holding everything yourself and unwilling to let go, it's a good, clear sign that you're not trusting your partner. And trust is critical, particularly for a woman to be able to let go of the lead. And when I speak about falling into the feminine, it's falling into that part of us that feels, that expresses, that lets that aliveness come through our bodies. So falling into our feminine is an incredibly, incredibly powerful place. And I find the more deeply I fall into my feminine, the more Rod steps into the place of cherishing and honoring and making decisions and doing things in our relationship that support me and support both of us to be all that we want to be. Okay, so Carl says dealing with female anger is really challenging. Yes, that is true. And this is where, if a woman is clean in her anger, so let me explain the difference between clean in the anger and not clean in the anger. If I go to Rod and I say to him, you've done this and you've done this and you've done that and you should have done something different and blah, 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 and I'm really pissed off, I'm dumping. I'm throwing things at him. I'm accusing him. I'm probably bringing forward 5, 10, 15 years of resentments, things that belong in other past relationships. Hang on, I have a cat reaching out, got hooked on my top. So if I go to Rod with that kind of anger, yeah, he doesn't want to hear that. He doesn't want to be part of that dialogue because it's dumping and it's resentment. If I go to Rod and I go, I feel really angry, what you'll notice, as I did that, and I'm sure all of you watching felt my anger, but as I did that, I breathed into the place of raw anger in my body. I let myself feel depth and charge of anger. I let it be present in my voice. I let it be present in my body. But that expression of anger is the kind of expression that Rod will say, okay, show me more of that. And then I might start roaring and screaming, but doing it in a way that it's simply energy moving through my body. I'm not using dialogue, blame, or story to back him into a corner. I've done that before and it doesn't work for our relationship. It doesn't bring out the best parts of either of us. But if I let that anger come through my body cleanly, then Rod, it inspires him into action. It inspires him to be there for me. It inspires him to want to hold space for me. So I hope that helps to make a distinction with your question, Carl, because I think a lot of the reason that female anger is feared by men is because that anger often has years of resentment with it, but it often has a lot of story and dumping in it. And Rod and I, we've both done work around our past relationships, but we're also both committed to staying emotionally current so that what we're working on in our relationship is about our relationship and not bringing the past stuff forward. And if people haven't done the work on past relationships, it's often really important to do that in order to become emotionally current. Feodos just asked about female blaming energy. So I think I've just addressed your question, but if you have something further on that, feel free to ask. I'm just going to go to the notes that I have here about leading to see if there's something else. Yeah, the inspiration that a man feels when his partner trusts him. Like when a woman trusts a man, the man grows. It's the fastest way to see a man grow is to trust him. So women who are in relationships where you don't trust your partner, I invite you to ask yourself why you're in a relationship with a man you don't trust. Why are you in a relationship with a man where you end up taking the lead? And generally women choose that because it's their desire for safety and control. It's their desire to stay in control. But then underneath that, they end up resentful because they don't want to be in control all of the time. So before I was with Rod, I was really clear that I needed to be with a man who had a kind of strength and depth that would allow me to open, soften, and expand. I needed to be with a man where I could really trust him and trust him so that I could be all of me. Like my intention and my desire for my life is to be all of me. And so by me knowing that, then I need to be with a man who will accept me if I'm angry, and accept me if I'm happy, and accept me if I'm orgasmic, and accept me if I'm confused, and also be able to have the challenging conversations with me. And also that being with a man who will also prioritize his own needs and feelings, because if I go into a controlling mode with Rod, his body will tell him, and he'll be like, ugh. He'll have that. He won't react like that. That's more my expression. But there'll be something inside of Rod that's like, ugh. And so he will often say, something feels off here. Something doesn't feel right. What's going on with you? So he'll name it up when I'm being in that controlling place. So even having him name it up, it's like, I can let go. But if I was with a man where I was controlling and that control kept running through the relationship, I would start to lose respect for the man. I want to be with a man who will call me out, and who will, the days when I might be overdoing it, will say, shouldn't you have a rest now? Or the times when I think I might want to stay up till 11:30 or 12:30 or watch something else on TV late at night, that, being with a man who's like, no, I actually think you need to sleep now. And for me to be able to go, oh yeah, you're right, because I know then that he's got my best interests at heart, and that he's not going for his needs, he's going for what serves me, but also he will protect his own needs if I'm trampling over him, if I'm bullying or being blamey or being controlling, all of which are things I can do. But because Rod listens to his own needs and feelings, he will call that out when it happens. And I think one of the things that first drew me to Tantra, the very first event that I went to, it said on the flyer, and it was a mixed event, it was for women and men, but on the part that was speaking to men said, for men, learn how to say no to her. And I went, I want to be in a space where men know how to say no to a woman, because I had a sense that that kind of energy, men who could say no to women, that would make a difference. And that was really important to me, to know that a man would say no to me. And Rod certainly has said no to me plenty of times if it feels like I'm being controlling or blamey or resentful or bullish towards him. He's also said no to me if it feels like, you know, he's protecting my own best interests. Also, I've spoken on these sessions previously about the intimacy times that Rod and I have in our calendar twice a week. So even creating the structure for those intimate times, that's something that Rod put in place. The structure Rod put in place, you know, making those times, putting them in our calendars. It was something that I'd expressed. It's something that I'd shared was important to me, and I'd shared it with Rod a few times. And then at some point I shared with him my disappointment that it hadn't happened. And then he took the lead on, going, okay, what time's going to work? What fits in with your schedule? What fits in with my schedule? Okay, let's lock it into our calendars. So, you know, he took the lead on that. And, you know, Wednesday afternoon is one of the times for our intimate sessions. So even today, after we'd had intimate time, and we'd started a little bit late today because we both had phone calls and errands in the middle of the afternoon, but after the intimate time, I had a moment of lying there and going, oh, now I can't fully relax because I know I've got to get up and get ready for date night, and Rod has something on this evening, so I need to. And I could feel myself going into like all of that. And then I just said to Rod, what's the time? And he shared with me what the time was. And he said, why is it important to you? And I said, oh, well, I want to, you know, be up and getting myself organized by 6:15. So he's like, okay. And he set a timer for 6:15 so that at 6:15 we both got up. So then I could relax. So even little things like that, it's like I asked Rod a question, and by asking him a question, I invited him to take the lead on managing the time, on managing our space, our structure, so that both of us would be able to fulfill our commitments for this evening. And yeah, there's this whole other sense of, like, just even in that small example around time this afternoon, I could feel myself just really melt and deepen into the relaxation space, knowing it's like, oh, Rod's taken care of it. Now, Peter has asked, could you expand on the difference between trusting your own masculine and needing a man you trust? Both are essential. If I don't trust my own masculine, then it's quite likely that I will draw into my space an untrustable man. So internal is often reflected in the external. If I doubt my own masculine, if I doubt my masculine capacity, then I will attract into my life men with weak masculine capacity. Generally, that's a mirror. If I've put, it can be a mirror or it can be the opposite. So another example I often see, women might have denied their own masculine, and so their own masculine is pushed aside, and the feminine aspect is dominant, strongly dominant in the woman, but then she will often attract that dominance in a man. So then the lack of her own masculine gets a counterforce in the external masculine. So yeah, it's important to have that internal masculine. I know there was a point in my relationship with Rod where he and I were having some conflict, and I was, unhappy about how that was playing out, unhappy with the conversations we were having. And I just really fell back into trusting my own masculine. And from that place of falling back into trusting my own masculine, then was able to step forward with a stronger expression of my feelings. And then I was met more strongly by Rod. So even internally doing that dance of like, I've got my back. I know where my boundaries are. I know when I'll walk away from this relationship. And then coming forward, not with ultimatums, but coming forward with, I'm sad about this and I'm angry about this and I'm not okay with this, then meant we were having a very different quality of conversation. Okay, let's move into some of the questions that came in prior to tonight about this topic. So somebody asked me about withholding ejaculation, and specifically this man's question was, in men taking a lead in relationships, avoiding ejaculation becomes a major challenge. Any ideas would be appreciated. So I was a little bit confused with this question, and so I spoke to Rod about it to kind of tease out what some of the topics might be. And the first thing that came up for both Rod and I in the context of this question is whether or not the man is experiencing premature ejaculation, because his concerns about being able to withhold ejaculation seem a little bit out of place in taking a lead in relationship. So you can take a lead in relationship without having mastered ejaculation control. Ejaculation control can be a beneficial thing to have in a relationship, but you don't need to be able to withhold ejaculation in order to be able to lead. Most of what I've spoken about tonight in terms of leading in relationship is actually about the emotional and the directional aspects of relationship, more so than the sexual aspects of relationships. So that's part of the reason I was confused with that question. And so I do wonder if the man who asked the question is experiencing premature ejaculation. And then my response to that is to say there are a lot of ways to make love to a woman. Even after ejaculation, you can make love with your fingers, with your mouth, with your tongue, with that energetic penetration, with the feeling of your body against hers. So there's a lot of ways for making love that don't even require an erect penis. The other question that came up for me in regards to this is whether or not the woman is surrendering sexually. So if the woman is not willing to surrender sexually, then perhaps the man is not bringing leadership or direction in the relationship overall. So then she's holding on when it comes to the sexual aspect. Because if a woman is holding on everywhere else in her life, it becomes impossible to just surrender and open sexually. So being able to bring some of that leadership to the relationship overall, to go, hey babe, I'll take care of that. Hey sweet, it's okay, like, you put your feet down, tell me what you need to know, I'll go research it for you. Or I'll take care of the house for you today. Or, stepping in to provide, to lead, to create that direction so that she feels held, means that a woman is much more likely to surrender sexually, to open through her body when the trust is established across the greater context of the relationship. Sherry has just asked now how to navigate if the woman generally has stronger organizational and management skills than the man, if the man is content to rely on the woman for those skills. And that's that's actually quite common, and that's true for Rod and I, that I have stronger organizational skills for Rod than Rod. But having those strong organizational skills doesn't mean that I do everything. It means that, I can share with him how I feel. I can share with him what I see. I can share with him what needs to be done, and I can share with him that, it needs to be shared, that, it's something that I would like for us to work on together, so that it becomes co-created and not just me holding it. Having a greater capacity to organize and to see things is often common for women, because we have that wider vision generally in our lives, that we notice the little things, we notice the detail, whereas men are much more likely to be single focused and going in a direction. But if we put things inside of the man's direction, like our feelings, things that he can see, then it gives him the inspiration to step in and support us. And there's also risk and vulnerability required on the woman's part to express her feelings, even to be able to go, this is too much for me. I can't manage the kids and the house and my own work and doing things for you. So I need help. So letting a man know your needs and feelings is really important in that regard. Okay, so I'm going to have a look at the next question that I got in prior to this evening. This woman shared about struggling to feel safe in a relationship, and she stopped having non-committal relationships. Now she tells the man she's looking for a committed, continuous, open communication, and then the feedback she's getting from men is that feels like a contract. She says, I tell them I want to feel safe before I move on to have sex. Mind you, these men have been younger than me. Can you share how I navigate this situation? I would say in this particular situation, it's the underlying needs that you're presenting. So if you're making a man responsible for making you feel safe, then that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody at the very beginning of a connection. And it's going to seem like a lot of hard work. However, what I've done, both in my relationship with Rod and my relationship prior to Rod, was sharing that I want to feel what the energy is between us. I want to feel who we are to each other, because I don't want to share my body sexually until I have a sense of how we relate, how we connect, who we are. And I don't want to share sexually until I have a sense of whether we might be opening into a relationship together. So by doing that, it's not about using sex as control. It's not about having the man make me feel safe, because the man is not responsible for my safety, especially in the dating phase. It's like, I want to know that a man cares about my safety. Yes, I want to know that a man has the capacity to protect me. But if I'm making him responsible for my safety in the dating phase, that is already going to feel needy, controlling, and too much for a man. Sorry to be the bearer of the bad news, but what you can say is like, I'm interested in you and I'd like to get to know you. And I'm also not interested in having sex outside of a relationship. So, I'd like to get to know you before we have sex. I'd like to have a sense of who we are, how we relate, how we connect. And then if that all goes well, yeah, I'd love to connect with you sexually. Like, I can feel the sexual energy. I can feel there's something there. and I'd prefer to get to know you first. So that way it's about honoring yourself, having your own back for your safety, and then inspiring the man to feel your heart, to feel who you are as a woman. And in that way, your sensuality and sexuality can still be present. You can be dating a man and you can flirt and you can be open, you can be expressive. You can even like have a man, like, you know, if a man takes you and hugs you and holds you, you can surrender into the feeling of your sensuality and sexuality and being held. If he touches your hand, letting that electricity move through your body so that there's a sense of the connection and the energy between you, and not using sex to tease or to taunt or as a control mechanism. So I hope that makes sense for the person who asked that question. The next question, I also spent some time with Rod on this question. This person has asked, my new partner of 4 months is still partially financially dependent on his ex-partner. I feel like this disempowers his masculine to be the true leader he is. He is such a kind, strong, capable and sensual man. How can I support him to grow into his manhood and regather his full responsibility without pushing him to work through his pain quicker than he is ready for? I want him to feel safe and not pressured. I also want to feel that I can trust him to lead our relationship into the future. I like what you have shared previously about setting a relationship intention and feel we have done that. However, it would be helpful to revisit and clarify. So my first instinct, I'm going to be really blunt and honest on this, is when I read that, I would not be pursuing a relationship with a man who was still financially dependent on his ex-partner. For me, that feels like a red flag and a big no. However, as I chatted through it with Rod, it became clear that there might be a couple of exceptions. So, are there children involved, and is the man taking care of the children, and is the financial support in relation to the children? If so, completely understandable. Is there a shared business interest and the partial financial dependence relates to the business interest that they share together? Then I'd be okay with that. But if he was dependent on his ex-partner to kind of prop him up, that's a clear signal for where the man is at in his relationship with responsibility. And if he can't be responsible for his own finances as a man in the world, then it's not somebody I would want to pursue intimacy with. It's really important to me, based on a past mistake in a relationship, it's really important to me that a man is able to take care of himself financially and is someone who is financially responsible. So that's why that one's a bit of a hard line for me. But also our relationship with money and finances is also reflective of our relationship to our own energy. It's reflective of how we treat others. So I think there may be some other layers to unpack and tease out on that one. Other questions that came up for me, I think I had a lot of questions that arose in reading that. So perhaps you can take these questions on and have a deeper look at them. Are you in love with the man or his potential? Something I always say to women is, do you love him and accept him the way he is? Because if you want to change him, it's not the right man for you. Because if we go into a relationship with somebody in love with their potential or wanting to change them, then we're automatically setting ourselves up to be in mother mode, setting ourselves up to be the one who leads the relationship. And if that's not what you want, then it won't work. If you want to lead the relationship, then you can be in mother mode. But if you don't want to lead the relationship, then you need to be able to accept him exactly as he is. The part of the question that speaks about him growing into his manhood, that's his responsibility and not a woman's responsibility. The woman's responsibility is to express your feelings and to fall into your feminine. So if you want to inspire this man, do your feminine work. It's like fall into your feelings, express how you feel. If he's like, oh, I've got to ask my ex-partner for some money, then if it feels bad to you, cringe, show him how it feels. If he's like, you know what, I've said no to money from my ex, I'm not taking it anymore, and that feels good to you, then let him see that it feels good. So let your feelings express to him how things feel without trying to control him, without trying to change him, without telling him how to be a man. And this is certainly it's not about letting a man lead, which was part of the phrase used in the earlier part of the email I received. It's not about letting a man lead, because if we look at that in the context, if I'm playing a game with someone and I let them win, it means I gave them the win. They're not truly winning. So if I'm letting a man lead, he's not truly leading. The way that a man leads and the way that women can support that is by falling into our feminine and from our feminine expressing our feelings. Okay, I am going way late tonight. It's already 8:20. I have another two questions actually 3 questions that came in advance, and I think there's still some questions in the feed that I haven't responded to. So I might go for another 15 minutes and see how we go with that. How are people feeling? Are you enjoying the content? Are you getting things out of it? Are there things that you feel like you can put into practice in your life? So a question that came in via email this afternoon from a man was, how do I use my healthy masculine to rekindle the sexual confidence and freedom we had in our 20s, whilst my wife trusts in herself that she is safe, there is no shame or guilt, and she is free to open up and explore again and feel pleasure that comes from it. So this is a couple who've been together, I'm guessing around 20 to 30 years based on some of the other context that was in the email. And they were quite open and sexually expressive in the beginning, and then there's been some closures, which happens with time and habit and sometimes age and children and responsibilities. Also, this man's wife got in touch with some of the pain of sexual abuse, and I know it can be confusing for men when women were open and then past sexual abuse comes to the surface and then a woman closes. And I want to reassure men that when that sexual abuse comes up, it often comes up because it's her time. It is quite common that sexual abuse comes up at a certain time in a woman's life, or even a certain time in a man's life. But often abuse raises its head because it's sat dormant for so long that it's just simply time for it to be addressed. Also, it can be that if the woman hasn't felt connected sexually in the relationship and she starts to feel sexually resentful in the relationship, that then it sparks some of those past memories around the abuse. It can also happen that if she feels safe in the relationship, that the sexual abuse comes up for healing. So there's a few different reasons for it. In terms of rekindling that, it's leading in the relationship beyond the bedroom, putting into practice some of the things I've been speaking about. finding out who your partner is. If you've been together for such a long time, you might need to date her a little bit again. You might need to woo her a little bit. You might need to find out who she is in this phase of her life. What turns her on? What excites her? What does she need to unwind in her day? What are the things she needs from you? And so finding out those things in a bedroom context, but also in a whole of life context, so that you can be the man who supports her, who leads her, who makes decisions for her, and makes decisions that shows her that you really have her back. And giving her non-sexual affection, because non-sexual affection helps a woman to melt some of the protective layers that she has up, particularly where there's been abuse. If a woman feels a man's touch with agenda, with expectation, if she feels him always coming towards her wanting something, then her body can get armored. So non-sexual touch and non-sexual affection is really important, and developing a kind of presence that she can feel you feeling into her. So not just taking what you see at face value, but having that part of you that is present enough that you're feeling what's below the surface. You tune into her and it's like, she might have a smile on her face, but maybe the smile's fake. What sits under the smile? What's in her belly? What's in her heart? And being able to speak to those feelings. I can see that something's not okay with you. I can see and feel that you're frustrated today. What do you need? I can see that, you're holding something back. I really want to know what it is that you're holding back. So then inviting and encouraging her to come forward with those feelings will help her to feel safe and held in the relationship. Karen says, loving this topic. I think you could do next week too. I could do next week too, the way this is going. Good. I'm glad people are learning. Excellent comments there. Thank you. Oh, awesome. I'm glad that this is hitting the spot. Yeah, it's such an important topic in the world we live in today. So I'm really glad people are getting heaps out of it. Another question that came in just before we started was about from a man, and he said, I guess this question is, and it's relevant whether someone's in a relationship or not, how can a man create or nurture a strong direction, passion, or mission if that isn't a strong natural element in their psyche? I don't necessarily mean a passion about a hobby. I guess I mean something more abstract, a passion and direction in life, a feeling of solidity and groundedness would be part of it. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting question, and part of the other thing that could be at play here is that part of a man's purpose could be to love his woman, to love her into openness and radiance and surrender and ecstasy. In my relationship with Rod, we went through a stage where he was doing some work on purpose, and he discovered that part of his purpose is to love me fully and wholeheartedly, and to be of service to our relationship. And I know Rod went through a little bit of a process himself around what that meant and how that looked, and is that a masculine purpose? And yes, it is a masculine purpose. So a man can have a purpose that includes relationship, that includes his partner. It can be about a vision that he's creating for future relationship. So it doesn't have to be about something in the external world. A man's purpose can be to be the best version of himself. It can be to create transformation. A man's purpose can be anything. what's important is that a man puts a good amount of his energy and focus towards that purpose. So a man can't just say that his purpose is to, to wholeheartedly love his woman, but then spend a lot of time ignoring her. That would be out of integrity. So if a man has that sense that his purpose is around relationship, then he needs to find out, really in detail who his woman is, what she needs, what she wants in the future, and how he can be the man, how he can grow himself into the man that can support all of that. So I think because this man had said, in the earlier part of the email, he'd asked about whether or not a man's purpose can be related to a relationship. So I think that's a little bit more where it's at. Sometimes it takes men a while to connect with purpose. So it may be that you need to spend some more time exploring purpose. You might need to look at the nuances of purpose. You could be, for example, you could be a salesperson, but your purpose might be to greet everyone with love and love and presence in everything you do, so that even if you're not passionate about sales, you can be passionate about bringing love and presence to every single thing you do. So I think spend some time with purpose, and the solid and the groundedness you speak about, that's being able to really commit yourself to something. I think a lot of men nowadays are afraid to commit themselves to something because there's fears of failure, there's fears of rejection, there's fears of hurt. So I think perhaps grounding yourself is going, yeah, I'm going to commit to a purpose and I'm going to commit to that and be as good as I can be at that until something else reveals, until something else calls my energy. Life will always give us feedback, and in that way, women are often reflecting life back to man, like the expression of our feelings is feedback. I had another question, so we've been going for an hour and 22 minutes. Actually, here we go. There's a couple of questions in Messenger. So let's go to this one first. A woman said in her question, my mother always said about dating, you need to play hard to get. Is that true? Do we really need to play? Are there tactics? In my life, I've found that is not true. Playing games means you get games in return. That's a waste of time. What I found, particularly in my 40s, was that I became really clear about saying what I was looking for. Like in my 20s and my 30s, I I wanted to play it cool and not put pressure on the man and not ask for too much. What I discovered in my 40s, in being more comfortable in my own body and my own skin, being able to be on a date and say to a man, yeah, I'm looking for a long-term committed relationship. I want to create a life with someone. It's really important to me. And that in itself, like sharing what's important to me, sharing what I'm looking for and being really upfront and honest about that, that in itself became its own sorting process, so that anyone who didn't want that, well, they wouldn't be around for a second date. Anybody who was looking for something committed and looking for a deeper experience of sharing relationship, well, then they would show up again for a second date. So absolutely don't play games, be authentic, but also you can say to somebody, I'm looking for a committed relationship, which is all about me, compared to I want a committed relationship. And I think you might be it. Because there's a way that I think sometimes when women start talking about commitment, they start putting pressure on the man, like that man is now responsible for being that person. Whereas sharing, like, a committed relationship is important to me, that's about me. That's absolutely about who I am. And then the man is free to decide if he wants to step in and see if he journeys that path with me. It also means from that space, I'm in that feminine place. It's like, I've got me, I'm holding me, I'm loving me, my own masculine's present, I know who I am. And so then it's much more likely that you end up in a relationship with somebody who's much more suitable. So I hope that helps. Okay, let's see what the other questions are and if we've got space. Okay, those other ones were personal messages, and I have a question here from somebody who would prefer to be anonymous. She is dating a man and has the feeling he pulled back. Don't know if he's not well. He has a lot of work on and seems slightly corona stressed. That's a new phrase for me, corona stressed. He made a video for me last week. We did a video project together. He is doing it as a favor. Now, I have initiated another meeting and said it would be lovely to see you soon. That was on Monday. He said he could do Wednesday. He doesn't seem romantic with me anymore. Feels pulled back. So we have this date for tonight, but he hasn't initiated anything concrete yet. What am I doing? Question mark, wait, question mark. Yeah, wait. If you haven't heard from him, and this person is on the other side of the world, so when she says tonight, it's a different tonight than Australian tonight. But yeah, wait till you hear from him. You've expressed that you'd love to see him, so you've expressed your feelings. And if he doesn't step forward and make that happen, then consider that he's sorted himself out of the equation. Essentially, when we share our feelings or we create invitations for men, and when I say creating invitations, creating an invitation could be as simple as, I'd love to see you again. And if he doesn't respond to that, that was an invitation. He didn't respond. It's like, it's going to hurt. Allow the hurt. But if he doesn't respond, that's information for you. You know, it's information that he doesn't want to follow through. Equally, if I take invitation into a dating context, if you're on a date with a man and you say to a man, oh, I feel cold, the sharing of your feelings, I feel cold, that becomes an invitation. Now, if the man ignores that you feel cold, there's information. He doesn't care about your feelings. If he goes, oh, you're cold, okay, take my jacket, he cares how you feel. If he goes, oh, you're cold, let me put the heater on, he cares about how you feel. If he says, oh, you're cold, let's move inside, he cares about how you feel. But if you say, oh, if you've said you're cold and he doesn't respond, or he doesn't respond in a way that's kind and supportive, he didn't take your invitation. And I share this because you're dating at the moment, and I think it's important to understand that dating is really an opportunity to sort out who's appropriate, who's not appropriate, who's somebody who cares about your feelings, who's somebody who responds to your feelings. And the kind of man who can take a lead in relationship will absolutely respond to your feelings. But if he doesn't respond to your feelings, then he's probably not going to take a lead in the relationship. In my maybe mid to late 30s, I kind of initiated a whole relationship. I pushed and took too many of the initiatory steps in this particular connection and then relationship. But that man was never able to lead in our relationship. He was inconsistent, he was scattered, he lacked in presence. And I filled in too many of the gaps in the getting to know you phase So I missed out on the clues. I missed out on part of the sorting process of seeing who he was. And that's really where I then started to educate myself about sharing my feelings, sharing authentically, sharing who I am, so that from the place of sharing who I am and sharing that authentically and sharing it from a feeling space rather than a direction space, I could see who the men were who would be willing to lead, and who the men are that I can trust with my feelings and trust with direction and trust with, my whole life, my future, my safety and choices for my well-being as a woman. Nina has asked, how's finding purpose different for men and women? It's different because the masculine part needs purpose. And purpose is critical to masculine expression. Love is critical to feminine expression. So women and men both have masculine and feminine. I have quite a strong masculine. I'm quite strongly aligned to purpose. I also have, a strong feminine because I've spent some years now of cultivating the expression of my feelings and trusting that kind of flow of energy through my body and being able to fall back into that when I need to. And I'm, in a relationship with a man who also has a strong feminine. He's able to express his feelings quite clearly and easily. And he also has a strong desire and drive for purpose, that sense of wanting to contribute to others, wanting to contribute to people around him, wanting to be the best man he can be. So, both Rod and I have strong purpose and strong love, yes. We also both have strong masculine and strong feminine. The difference is that if I'm not expressing love, everything in my life is impacted. Because I'm a more predominantly feminine person, if I'm not expressing love in my life, my work is impacted, everything's impacted. If Rod and I have a disagreement, then it impacts my capacity to work. It impacts everything. And then the opposite is true for someone who's more masculine oriented. So if Rod's not connected to a purpose, his capacity to be present in our relationship is impacted. If Rod's not connected to a purpose, his capacity to feel good about himself is impacted. So often purpose, it's so close to the masculine identity for a man, and love and the expression of love is really close to the feminine identity for a woman. So I hope that helps with that particular question, Nina. Nina, you did ask a question a little while ago. Let's see if I can find it. The difference of holding space for women and men. I'm going to park that question. But there was a question about how to manage the leading when you're working and living together. So, Rod and I, we work together at times. We also have independent work. And so there'll be times when we work together when we're both in masculine mode. So we'll be supporting each other, both to be in like purpose-driven, masculine, like focusing on things, getting stuff done, so we can be masculine side by side when we're working on things. Even when I went to Rod this afternoon with some of my questions for tonight, it's like I was inviting his problem solving. I went to him a little bit vulnerable, so there was some feminine masculine at play. But then once we started breaking the questions down, we both went into masculine mode. We're both like analyzing and dissecting. But then we can flip out of that masculine mode, and in that particular instance, because I had initiated the questions and so on, then, you know, being able to say to Rod, thank you, you know, thank you so much, that really helped. And then feeling myself shining and reflecting my feminine back to him, so then polarity is restored between us. So knowing that there are times when it's okay to both be in masculine, and if you work together, that will happen, and living together, that can happen. But then you can also restore polarity as needed. Okay, we're at 1 hour 34. I wanted to share a little bit about the upcoming events. We've got our very first date night for singles starting on May the 30th, which I'm very excited about. We've got some early bookings in for that. So if you're a single person watching, date night for singles is a paid event. It'll be limited to 16 people. There'll be a teaching component. There'll be some energetic practices and some opportunities to meet each other. It's not so much about matchmaking people, but it is about helping you develop suitable dating skills so that you can meet somebody who is a suitable match for you. Then in July, I have our Relationship Tools for Men Level 1 event. So for any men who want more about this particular topic, how men can lead in relationships, developing presence, the capacity to feel into a woman, and so much more, Relationship Tools for Men Level 1 is a really, really awesome event for men, and I highly recommend that. We've also had great feedback about the women's level 1 online that happened a couple of weeks ago. So I know now that it can work online with people from around the world, and we've had great experiences with the women's one. And it also means that when people do practices, you can do things like switching off the video cam so that you're just doing the practices in your own space, in the privacy of your own home, learning how to cultivate that masculine presence, learning how to cultivate more of that capacity to lead, to feel in, but also for men to release some of the past fears or some of the past emotions of your own that have inhibited you from being the man that you want to be. We'll be running the women's level 1 again also in July, different weekends. But yeah, I highly recommend the level 1 events. They're super powerful, lots of beautiful content, but also really profound practices so that you start to embody and live the whole thing in a different way. So thank you all for joining me tonight. It's been beautiful to be here and to share so deeply and thoroughly with all of you. If you have any questions, do feel free to send them through to me for next week. And if you'd like to book in for either of the level 1 events, if you book and pay by this Friday, which you can do at the website, Joanne will also give you free access to our Tantra for Women or Tantra for Men online course, so that you have some additional supporting information for your journey. Well, it's good night from me. I'm a little hungry and I'm going to have some chicken laksa for dinner that I made yesterday. Thank you all for being here and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening. Mwah.